Hey friends, this is Noah, and I am back to talk to you today about Cogito. So, this is a new model that came out this past week, and I have been playing with it a little bit, not really a lot. Honestly, just kind of threw a couple questions in there to see what would happen. And I got to say, from initial testing, it might be my new go-to. So, here what we're going to do is we're going to actually test this out, and we're going to see how well it works for some academic use cases, okay? So, let's take a quick look first at what it basically says on the model page on Ollama. So there's a couple important factors that I want to point out. First and foremost, it's available in a number of different sizes, right? Anywhere from 3 billion all the way up to 70 billion. By default, it wants to give you the 8 billion model. I tried the 8 billion model, and I found it was a little bit inconsistent. So the first question that I ask every single model is, what is the largest falcon in the world? The first time I asked the 8 billion parameter model that, it said the gyrfalcon, which is correct. Then I asked that question again when I was showing the model to somebody else, and it said saker falcon, which is wrong. So because of that, I ended up actually switching to the 14 billion parameter model, and that one's been pretty good, and that's the one that we're going to test out here today. It is a little bit bigger, but we'll talk about the size of these models and stuff here in a minute. The first thing that I want to show you that I thought was really unique about this particular model is it can actually be a thinking model or a reasoning model, if you want to, whatever you want to call it, but it doesn't have to be. And so this was intriguing to me because I honestly don't really like reasoning models that much for my use case the majority of the time. Most of the time I feel like it just wastes time telling me what it thinks I want to hear about how it is figuring out the answer, and then it gives me a response that I probably could have got that same response without a thinking model. That said, I understand that there are use cases where having the reasoning can help. So I thought it was really cool that they have the option to turn this on and off. I hadn't really seen that before. And so I'm actually going to copy this so that I can use it later. But it's a really neat little feature. So when I go down and I was looking at benchmarks here, there's a couple things that I want to point out. Like I said, I started with the 8 billion parameter model, and the reason is because that tends to run really, really fast on my computer, and the benchmark scores were pretty good. You can see here they have the Llama 3 benchmarks, then they have the Cognito-based benchmarks. They also have the ones for the reasoning model here. Now, to me, the biggest thing that I noticed is there's not a huge jump between the standard and the reasoning model. That was one reason why I was intrigued by this, because I thought, well, if there's not that big of a difference, I don't think I need to use the reasoning. And so far I haven't. But then when I scrolled down, I also saw that the 14 billion parameter model was actually pretty darn good as well. So the other thing that I noticed about this, and this is just kind of like a side tip here, I find it really challenging to remember all these numbers in my head and then compare it to all these numbers. So what I did is I went over to Chat LLM and I simply asked Claude 3.7, I said, create a chart. I'll actually show you my chat here. Okay, that's why I was confused. Sorry about that. So let me show you what I did. I just said, create an interactive chart from these data, and I took 2 screenshots of the benchmark scores. And it gave me all this code and stuff, but it didn't actually render. So I said, okay, can you make it an interactive HTML? And it said, sure, and it gave me an interactive HTML. Now, if you're interested in Chat LLM, I have other videos about that. There will be linked in the description. I'm not going to spend time on that right now because that's not the point. The point here is to show you what it came up with in like a minute from Claude. What we have here are all the different benchmarks, and it's interactive in that if I hover over it, I can see the scores from the different models. Now, you can see over here on the left-hand side, we have our 8 billion parameter models, and the scores, I don't want to say they're not that good, because they are pretty darn good. Like when you're looking at these, so for context, the red is the standard model of Cogito, and the green is the thinking model of Cogito. So for me, the main thing I wanted to know is how much better is that reasoning model. And as we can see, it is better, but it's not enough better for me where I'm going to have the patience to sit and listen to, you know, the actual reasoning that it says it's doing, even though it might not actually be doing that. That's what I'm referencing when I say that is a really cool paper that Claude put out recently about how large language models work and reason. So if you haven't read that, but you're interested, totally go find that paper. It's kind of cool. But okay, so over here on the left, like I said, the 8 billion parameter model, I ran into some issues with it where it wouldn't give me consistent answers necessarily to some fairly basic factual questions. And so that made me move over to the 14 billion parameter model. So over here on the 14 billion, the light blue is the standard model and the pink is the reasoning model. As you can see, with the exception of MMLU Pro, they are very consistent here. And the other thing that I want to point out, the orange is Quen 2.5 14B, and a lot of the Quen models are seen as really, really good models. But here's the other piece. The green is DeepSeek. And that really surprised me. So this is the DeepSeek distillation of the 14 billion parameter Quen model. And on almost all metrics, the Cogito model was doing better. So I was really intrigued by this, and that is why I started experimenting with it. So as a reminder of how we can actually get this downloaded, first and foremost, I'm going to change this to 14 billion. Oh, I forgot to talk about size. Okay, size of these models. I have an 8 gigabyte VRAM graphics card. As you can see here, the 8 billion parameter model is just under 5 gigs. So that runs super, super fast on my machine. It's wonderful. When I bumped it up to the 14 billion parameter model, it is 9 gigabytes, which means it has 1 gig worth of information or data that spills over into my system RAM. That worked out okay for me. It's not too slow. I'm going to show you guys just in a second here what that actually looks like. So if you want to install this model, we can go into command line. We can just copy paste this code here and it will download it. You can also do that through OpenWebUI. So I have OpenWebUI open here. I'll just show you how to do that real quick. So if we go into our admin panel, we go into settings, and then we go into connections. What we can do here is down here where it says Ollama, right here, it says manage Ollama API connections. We can click on this little manage button, and here it says pull a model from Ollama. I'm just going to copy paste in that same thing, and then I can take off this beginning section. And if I just do Cogito 14B and hit download, it would download it. I'm not going to do that because I already have it, but that is a way you can do it if you don't want to actually go into command line. Honestly, I usually just use command line because I find it faster and more efficient. Okay, so all I need to do is I want to copy this thinking command. We're not going to use this right off the bat, but I will want to use it later. Okay, so let's jump back in and let's think about a couple academic questions. First and foremost, the factual question I always ask models in the beginning is, what is the largest falcon in the world? What is the largest falcon in the world? We will ask, and it will hopefully give us the correct answer of the gyrfalcon. Yeah, wonderful. So the other thing that I wanted to point out is you can see the speed of this, okay? So this is running on my 8 gigabyte VRAM graphics card, and my tokens per second on the response was about 10.14. So I would say this is a little bit slower than I would typically like to use, but the model's been pretty good so far, so I think I'm gonna tolerate it. That's pretty much where I've come to. So one of the questions that I ask a lot is to have these models explain social agency theory in the context of pedagogical agents. So explain social agency theory in the context of pedagogical agents. And typically, I would have this do this from like a RAG setup. Like I would typically have some sort of RAG happening here, and I would ask this based on the papers. And this is kind of tough because social agency theory is in theory all on its own outside of this specific use case, and they're a little bit different. So what was interesting to me is when I asked this question, it got it right. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be right too. So context refers to how virtual characters can be designed to engage learners through perceived social and human-like characteristics. Perfect. We can do this through social presence, human-like. Yeah. So this is all pretty stinking good in terms of, just my initial skim of what it's saying here. I was really impressed by this, especially considering we're not doing any RAG. I'm just asking the question at this point. So we are going to let it finish. Eventually it's going to finish writing all of this out, and we're going to go on to our next question. Oh boy, it's really talkative, huh? This is why I don't like reasoning models, by the way. So it's not doing reasoning right now, but this is why I don't use the reasoning models typically, because they just talk and talk and talk. It's like me, right? Oh my gosh, I'm just now realizing this. It was like if I was a machine, I would talk this much. So maybe that's why I don't really like the reasoning models. But this is just in its standard mode. It gave us a very, very detailed answer. Okay, so one thing that I have not at all, literally zero, have I tried this yet, is asked it to help me write an email. So I need help writing a professional email to a colleague. Make this nice, please. Your software was awful, full of bugs, didn't work. Why did you waste my time? Do quality testing before you send this to me. Okay, I would never send this email, obviously. These are just completely unfiltered thoughts that maybe you'll have, and here's what I would do is I would ask this to write it nicer. So let's see. I hope this message finds you well. I've always said that. since graduate school, because my advisor always said something like that in email messages, so I like that. I want to provide some feedback regarding the software implementation we received recently. While reviewing the software, I encountered several technical issues that are affecting our ability to move forward. The current state of the application is not meeting our requirements, causing delays. To ensure more productive collaboration, could you please review these challenges and provide an updated version? This will help us maintain project timeline. Okay, so how do I feel about this compared to 5.4? Actually, wait, let's do a little comparison here, okay? And we're gonna ask the exact same question. This time we're gonna ask both of them, and we are gonna be able to see a side-by-side comparison. I suspect that 5.4 is going to do a slightly better job, but that said, it may not. Let's see. Apparently this whole "I hope this message finds you well" is now something that LLMs are like saying regularly, so that's gonna take away some of the uniqueness of emails from Noah. So, okay, let's see what 5.4 said. I want to share some observations regarding software. While I appreciate the effort, I've encountered a few issues. Specifically, there seem to be some bugs, which has been quite challenging. Could we discuss ways to enhance quality assurance before future releases? So what I like is this one here gave us a concrete step to go forward, and it posed it as a more constructive question as compared to over here. We have to ensure a high quality product. I would appreciate if you conduct thorough testing before proceeding further. So like, as me, I would much rather send an email something along the lines of the email on the right. So I do want to point out, for those of you who don't follow the channel regularly, I'm not putting my question in here and then just copy pasting the email. I take these emails as like a structure for how I can word things nicer without having to spend a ton of time thinking about how to write something nice. Because writing professional emails, especially when I'm upset about something, is something that might take me 45 minutes to an hour to write a paragraph. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's because I overanalyze and I get too emotionally involved with email itself. So the reason I like to use large language models to help me is because they can help me figure out a structure for saying what I want to say and give me a different perspective on how I can phrase it nicer and more professionally. So when I look at the one over here on the left, it's fine. It's just not what I would prefer, if that makes sense. The one over here on the right is still what I would prefer. I want to share some observations, and the thing that I really liked is, could we discuss some ways to enhance quality assurance before future release? So the thing that I like about this is it's just, in my opinion, it's the difference between a good peer review and a bad peer review, right? Like, we've all gotten those peer reviews that don't really say much. They'll just say something that's like, theoretical framework is weak. Well, duh, what does that mean, right? That doesn't tell us anything of value. And that's kind of how I feel about this one on the left. I would appreciate if you conduct more thorough testing. Yeah, but you're not telling them what you want tested. And I know I didn't put that in the prompt, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. Right off the bat, 5.4 is coming up with, in my opinion, a more useful, constructive conversation starter than the other one, where it's saying, hey, could we discuss ways to enhance this quality assurance before future releases? So in terms of email, I don't think I'm switching to Cogito based on this test of, 1. I think I'm going to stick with 5.4 for email. Okay, so that brings us through our two most common use cases: general chat, or we would maybe be asking some sort of facts. I'll do one more of those while I'm talking here. What is residual heterogeneity in meta-analysis and moderator analysis? So we'll just ask it this stats question, which I'm pretty sure it's going to get right. First, the remaining variability or inconsistency after accounting for known moderators. Yeah, great. Okay, so that's right. So it seems reasonably good at facts, and I didn't prefer it for email, so that's okay. But like you guys know, I use different models for different things, and I think this is quickly becoming one of the models that I'm going to use for just like general chat purposes. Actually, what I want to do is I want to ask it to help me write something just to see how it does. I haven't used it for this before. Can you me write a brief paragraph for the introduction to an academic paper? I want to contextualize the social aspects of pedagogical agents for helping learning. The study investigates the effects of an agent's clothing style as either professional or casual, and its impact on learning or trust. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. I literally just made this up off the top of my head without an actual study that I know of, and I want to know what it's going to say. The integration of artificial intelligence into educational settings has led to increased interest in design of implementation. Social learning companions, particularly through pedagogical agents, serve not only as instructional tools but social partners who can influence credibility and engagement. Researchers suggest that students' response to these data are heavily influenced by social characteristics. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, given the context that I asked this to do, which was honestly a really crummy prompt, this is pretty good, I think. Like, I could build off this. I could use this as a general structure of thinking about how to position it. Now, for an academic paper, for those of us out there who are academics, you're looking at this and you're like, wow, that's way too short and it's missing the mark on blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not one to say you should use directly what's written by an LLM anyway, but the main thing that it came up with here is it's got some nice ways of transitioning between ideas, and oftentimes that's where a lot of us get stuck, is transitioning from one content area to the next content area. And I haven't done a video on academic writing yet, but that's something I've been meaning to do for a long time, so eventually I will get around to doing that. And one of the main things that I find is transitions make or break your paper, and the transitions in this aren't too bad. So granted, it's only a paragraph, but generally speaking, I'm pretty pleased with this model so far. In regards to email writing, it's not going to take over that role from 5.4 for me. 5.4 is still better, in my opinion, for how I like emails written and the structure of emails to be written. In terms of general chat, I think this one might take it for me, guys. I think it might. It's been pretty good so far. I'm pretty happy with it so far for general chat. I like the way it talks about things. It tends to get facts, maybe not 100% right, but really close to right. So I'm really liking this model so far. I just have one more thing that I wanted to show you guys, which is its reasoning ability. So if you remember earlier, I highlighted a little prompt, and all we have to do, oh, I lost it. Okay, I copy pasted something else since then. So we're just going to go back to the model page, and we are just going to copy this enable deep thinking subroutine. And that is what we are going to use. And we are just going to drop that in as the system prompt. And so this will enable the model to do some thinking or reasoning, if you are comfortable with calling it that. I'm honestly not comfortable with calling it that because I don't believe that that's what's actually happening, but that's what we're going to call it. So we're going to call it a reasoning model, and I'm going to say, what is the largest falcon in the world? It's going to start thinking, and I'm just going to display everything, and I'm not going to read through this because I'm sure you don't want to listen to me do that. So I will just let you guys read through here as it generates. Okay, so we can see it did come up with the correct answer here of a gyrfalcon, and its quote-unquote reasoning is all there. But like I said, that took 42 seconds. So the overall time for this, let's see what it was. 56 seconds was the duration, okay, when we had reasoning involved. So let's just do this one more time, and we're not going to have reasoning involved. And so the last one was 56 seconds. Let's see how long this takes. It's not going to be 56 seconds, probably. Okay, this time it took 11 seconds. So as you can see, that's the main reason I don't like reasoning models. Number one, I don't really truly believe they're reasoning, so I don't particularly like that very much, but everybody's calling them reasoning models, so apparently we're going to call them reasoning models. Second, in my use case of just asking for facts and things like that, it doesn't really seem to make much difference. If the model's going to get it right, it's going to get it right. Now, let me show you real quick. I mentioned that 8 billion parameter model. Let's switch to Cogito latest, and we'll just ask that same question. It's probably going to say the gyrfalcon. No, it's just blatantly wrong this time. Just wrong. Just I've never even heard of a lappet-faced falcon. Okay, yeah. So this is why I didn't like the 8 billion parameter model. Okay, this one isn't. I'm not even going to continue with that. I like the 14 billion parameter model of Cognito. I don't really like the 8 billion parameter model of Cognito very much. I think I'm going to continue using Cognito more in the future. I do not know 100% that it's going to stick around long term for me. Most of my general chat, so to speak, that I do is with Llama 3.1, Llama 3.1 8B, I think. I'm just checking here to make sure I don't tell you the wrong thing. It's right here, Llama 3.1, latest 8 billion. That's the one I use for general chat, but honestly, I don't really do that much general chat anymore. Most of mine tends to be more academically focused now that I kind of understand what large language models can and can't do reasonably efficiently. So I think I'm going to keep using Cognito 14B. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I like that it can be either a reasoning model or not reasoning model, just depending upon your use case. I don't have a great use case for reasoning models right now, but that might change in the future, and that's why I like this model that's able to do both. So that said, I've rambled a long time now when we've gone through this testing, and I'm sorry. But generally speaking, I think this model is pretty good for facts. I think it's pretty good for helping me come up with ideas on ways to write things. Is it leaps and bounds better than the other models that I use? I don't think so, to be honest. I'm talking about small margins here, okay? So like if I'm comparing Cognito's response to Granite 3.2 8 billion, I'd say they're probably on par with one another from just my informal testing. What I've been impressed by with the Cognito model is more in regards to like theory in my area. It tends to do a little bit better with that than some of the other models of similar sizes, and I find that impressive, and it's also something that's important for the type of work that I do. So I'll keep experimenting with Cognito in the future. When we get around to our next set of best models for normal people, maybe this model will be in there. I don't know. I got to use it a lot more before I am willing to say this is one of the best models for normal people. But what I am comfortable saying right now is it might be a model worth taking some time to explore with. If your use case is similar to mine, where you do academic writing and particularly theory is important in your field, it might be able to help you with ideation and brainstorming a little bit, like some of the examples that you saw here. So that said, emails, I'm going to stick with 5.4 because as you guys saw in this video, Cognito it took a different approach that I didn't find as constructive as what 5.4 does. So with that, I will leave it be. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful week. If this video has been helpful for you, please like and subscribe to help support the channel, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day.